The article From the Achievement Gap to Educational Debt, Understanding Achievement in U.S. Schools. Gloria Ladson Billings writes about something called the achievement gap. The achievement gap, according to the National Governors Association, is a gap in academic achievements between minorities and their white counterparts. To sum it up, it is basically saying people who are non-white or have low income don't achieve well in standardized school testing as people who are white with high income. Many researchers over the years have left out several key points and criteria, like family background. It was the last thing added to the list of questions about the achievement gap. Gloria does not believe there is an achievement gap, but rather an educational debt. She explains that there are many factors for achieving in school properly, and several things that get in the way. One's education is positively correlated with many things, such as one's health, the health of a family member, their income, and their choices. The educational debt is where schools are not giving children who need more attention in their time more focus. We are failing to help these children through standardized testing and believing that everyone can learn the same. This has gone on for a long time. For an example, for many years, African American schools were getting hand-me-downs from white schools at the time, further lacking their educational needs, which was not being met pre-civil rights movement. She ends the article explaining this debt must be addressed in order for children to fully succeed in their educational careers.
The key terms from our article are the achievement gap and the education debt. These are key terms because this article was written to argue why we should not be looking at the achievement gap, but instead we should look at the education debt. The definition for the achievement gap, defined by Gloria Ladson Billings, is a term referring to the disparities in standardized test scores between Black and white, Latino and white, and recent immigrant and white students. The achievement gap has become one of the most used phrases in education literature and is one of the most pressing education policy challenges that states currently face. The education debt is the foregone schooling resources that we could have been investing in low-income kids, the deficit of which leads to a variety of social problems, mainly crime, low productivity, and low wages. It is comprised of historical, economical, socio-political, and moral components. The historical debt deals with society in the past and how some people thought Blacks, Latinos, and Natives were inferior and did not deserve to receive education as good as whites. The economic debt is the funding disparities between urban and suburban schools and the value placed on education between the two and of different groups of students. The socio-political debt reflects the degree to which communities of color are excluded from the civic process. This has caused families of color to be denied access to decisions involving the quality of their kids' educations. The last component is the moral debt. Moral debt reflects the disparity between what we know is right and what we actually do. What human beings owe to each other in the giving of or failure to give honor to another when honor is due.
The concepts touched on in this article mainly have to do with the achievement gap and the different forms of debt and how they affect the education system. Billings makes a strong point in the beginning that although the achievement gap is discussed and studied very frequently, we seem to rarely provide the kind of remedies that help them to solve their problems. The idea of achievement gap is to divvy race and class across the United States and shine a light on the academic gap that is there. Billings' main point that she wanted to make was that all focus on achievement gap only leads to short-term solutions. As for debt, there are multiple kinds touched on in this article. The United States is trillions of dollars in debt, so they pay trillions of dollars in interest each year. Billings mentions many concurrencies between national debt deficits and our educational system. She believes that historical, economic, socio-political, and moral decisions and policies have created the educational debt.
So some of the connections that we have from Ladson Billings' article is to our readings, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander and White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Now, some of the ideas and concepts that are deeply related are the socio-political debt, economic debt, and historical debt. So in socio-political debt reflects basically the degree to which communities of color are excluded from the civic process. We see this a lot in the new Jim Crow, talking about how there's a new form of segregation that is in the form of policing bodies. So instead of allowing schools to be fully integrated, we still are having policing of black and brown bodies by increasing drug laws, making them unable to participate fully in the systems, because if they're labeled a felon, they can no longer get a job, participate and get housing to get into the position to be able to participate in their civic process. Economic is basically focusing on the degrees of which the fundings of schools are happening. We see this a lot in the new Jim Crow as well, talking about how poor neighborhoods have lack of income because they're unable to maintain jobs as well. And the historical debt is mainly focusing on both readings, I believe, where it's talking about how the black communities have had a lot of discrimination and a lot that they have to work against to try to overcome, and there is that debt where they can never really fully achieve what white people have been able to achieve over 500 years in the short 60-year period. So these are just some of the ideas and concepts that I believe are deeply connected to Ladson Billings' article about economic debt. Thank you.